Welcome back to Howling Around. Today, I want to talk about why a great first date can still lead absolutely nowhere, and why that experience is so confusing and frustrating for a lot of men. I mean, I've been there plenty of times, and I can testify that it is confusing, and yes, it is extremely frustrating. But it's also something that is inevitable. When you're dating, eventually you run into this experience at some point. You know what I'm talking about. You go on a first date, it feels good, it feels amazing, great conversation, there are laughs, maybe even a kiss at the end. And then you walk away thinking that the date went well, and naturally, reasonably, you expect that there will be a second one. And then, yeah, nothing happens. Replies slow down, plans become vague, and contact stops entirely. And what makes this especially frustrating is that you don't even know what you supposedly, quote unquote, did wrong. Because from your perspective and from my perspective, nothing fell off. You did all the right things. Now, to understand why this happens, we have to separate two things that often get mixed together, which is a good date and attraction are not the same thing. A good date for you does not necessarily mean a good date for her. And even if the both of you had a good date, it might mean different things for the both of you. Now, a lot of guys assume that if a woman enjoys spending time with you, that automatically means she wants to continue seeing you. That's how we're wired. I mean, if a woman smiles at me on the street, then automatically I think, well, she wants me. That's how we're wired. We're men. That's how it works. But many women are perfectly capable of having a pleasant, engaging evening with someone, they don't feel a strong romantic pull toward. It's normal. Women can do that. That doesn't mean that the date was fake. It also doesn't mean that she was being dishonest. It might actually really mean that she did had a great date. But it just means that enjoyment and attraction are different experiences. From the outside, dating often gets framed like it's a performance, which it shouldn't be, and I think it really isn't. If you say the right things, behave well, avoid mistakes, and if you're a gentleman, you logically should move forward, you should advance a level. But attraction doesn't work like that. It's not a checklist, and it's not earned through effort alone. Attraction is mostly instinctive. We're humans, we are still animals, so attraction is something animalistic, something that is in our nature. So, yeah, there's that. And she's paying attention to how she feels around you, whether there is curiosity, whether there is tension, and, a sense of pull, not just comfort. Those impressions tend to form relatively quickly, and once they are formed, they don't change easily. And that means, when she walks into the room, you know automatically from the first few seconds whether you are attracted to her. Well, same goes for her. And where many men get stuck is what happens after the date. This is where it gets interesting. When the interest isn't clearly returned, this is the frustrating part. And instead of accepting the situation, they start replaying the evening in their head. They analyze what they said, what they did, and what they could have done differently. And then, of course, they send the follow up message, a long message that tries to clarify things. That message might be way too long, way longer than necessary. It might ask where she stands, what she wants, how she feels, and it might even try to explain your intentions. And while this comes off, or while this comes from a place of wanting clarity, and it might come from a place of honesty, it almost, no, not even almost, it just never improves your situation. It backfires even. Attraction doesn't grow from explanations, and in early dating, sending those messages, they highlight uncertainty, and uncertainty tends to work against you, and it definitely doesn't work, in your favor. So if a woman is genuinely interested in seeing you again, you will know. You don't have to ask. You won't have to ask. And this is the part where many men struggle with, accepting that. Sometimes just nothing went wrong. You didn't fail the date, you weren't boring, you didn't ruin anything. She simply didn't feel enough attraction to continue. And no amount of patience, more texting, or overthinking will change that fact. And the healthiest way to handle this is also the simplest way. You take the date at face value. A good first date means you had a good first date. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. You suggest a second one clearly and calmly, and then you pay attention to how she responds. Not necessarily what she says or how she behaves, but what happens. Genuine interest shows itself through enthusiasm, availability, and ease. When responses are slow and vague or non-committal, that is information. That's all you need to know. And that might not be the information you want, but it should help you clarify what is what. The mistake is trying to override that information with more effort on your part, which you shouldn't do. When you keep chasing clarity, after every first date that doesn't continue, that doesn't go anywhere, dating becomes exceptionally draining. You start performing instead of just being present and just accepting the fact that she's not into you. You start treating dates like they are tests instead of just a shared experience. And a better mindset should be that, your job on a first date is not to impress someone into liking you. She either does or she doesn't. A first date is just simply figuring out whether there is mutual interest. And if it's there, things will move forward naturally. And, it will be relatively easy. If it's not, then they won't, it will go nowhere. So a great first date that leads nowhere is definitely not failure on your part. It's just information and she's not that into you. That's it. Accept it, move on. So that's it for today. And I'll talk to you in the next episode. Bye bye.